Hello, hello. Good Friday. Bonjour
Hi
tout le monde.
everyone. Bonjour.
Hey, it's a sunny day out here in Quebec.
Ah,
Still quite cold. Not like in Europe, I heard, but it's a beautiful day. So who do we have today with us, Nicolas?
so we're together with the women in language. So Kerstin, Shannon, and Lindsay. So how are you doing, everyone?
How's everybody doing?
Doing great, doing
Yeah,
great.
very
Yes.
well, thank you.
I have to start every conversation today with WIL de St. Happis, which is
Oh,
Happy St. David's Day. It's St. David's Day, and apparently the Welsh are excited about it.
okay. Does
Wow.
any of you speak Welsh other than the phrase? Okay, yeah, good, good,
Yes.
great.
So is it
Otherwise, I probably wouldn't know.
Yeah, no, I don't know, but maybe it's something that people in Wales might know, even if they don't maybe fluently speak the language. I don't know, but
Yeah, probably.
good, good,
so let me
great.
throw a question out to our audience. What is March 8th? Anybody? What's March 8th? Nicolas, tell me.
Well, actually, March 8th is my birthday,
There you
but
go.
I
That's
don't think that's what it's about for today. Obviously, International Women's Day. I mean, of course, I know that because it's my birthday on International Women's Day. So, but uh, but I guess this is what a coincidence that Women in Language is happening in over dates, that happen to include March 8th. I mean, what are the chances? So, I think some of you are muted,
Oh,
Lindsay. Yeah,
I thought I unmuted you guys.
yeah.
That's
Well,
okay.
and
I'm,
Shannon
I'm,
Oh,
I'm
also.
miming. I thought I wasn't
Okay,
a
yeah,
mime.
yeah. Well, you
that,
were. I
that's
think we
okay.
got the gist of what you were
Yeah.
trying to say. So, yeah.
so yeah, not quite a coincidence. We have to admit.
Oh,
Yes,
Yeah.
we creatively chose the International Women's Day as one of the dates of women in language, and in fact, this is Lindsay first. So I still think this is really weird. Like Lindsay first spoke the idea that maybe all of us kind of had growing inside of us. Just sounds weird, but kind of a growing inside of our hearts and heads a little bit. This sort of idea of, well, we should do a thing. We should do some kind of event of, and just have a lot of speakers and something. We should have, but there are already language events. And Lindsay, you were telling me story this morning about when you had the idea, and that it was you who actually thought of International Women's Day.
Yeah, it was like it would have been like October 2017, and I was in Mexico, and I remember walking down the street back with our bags of shopping to our little Airbnb and thinking like, huh, and I was talking it out with my husband, like saying, wouldn't it be cool? Don't you think this would be a great idea? Something I'd love to do, but I don't think I could do it while we're still away. And then when I mentioned it to Kirsten, it then became a reality because, something like this you
Kirsten was
could
like,
not
I'm
organize
not
on your
waiting
own.
for anything.
And of course, then we got Shannon on board as well. So
Had to.
yeah.
Don't think it would have worked otherwise.
Hang on. What happened in August of that year? You three. Oh, weren't you guys in Montreal by any chance?
Yeah.
Wasn't?
That was the
Isn't
first
that
time
when
another
in
coincidence, maybe.
person.
Shannon? You met Kirsten and Lindsay at that event, wasn't it? Wasn't that the first time Shannon met?
Yeah, it was the first time we'd ever met in person.
And then Women in Language is born.
Yeah, so Women in Language is the spiritual child of LangFest, in a sense. No, why can we
Yes,
take
so
credit
thank
for
you,
that?
LangFest.
No, I don't think so. But it's great. Well, I think it's always, I think, a pleasure for us as organizers when people who go to our event meet, and then something new comes out of it. It's because it's what I think it's what the one of the purposes, one of the goals of being together physically at the same place is. Even though you can have events online like you do and stuff like that, because the logistics is so much easier, and you can bring in people that otherwise wouldn't have been able to participate. But sometimes the face-to-face interaction, that's how you get the ball rolling on projects, on talks, and you know so I think the internet and technology just hasn't killed events that are also face to face.
That I think you've just said, like, one of the big joys of event organizing, I think, is is that I don't know, it's just, there's a real magic to bringing all these people together, and it's, you've hit on one of the inspirations or the purposes of all of our events, right? Women in Language as well as LangFest. It's about putting people on the stage, and not necessarily putting them on a stage, but it's about putting people forward and shining a light on so many new voices and so many people that you have been seeing over the year, like we in Language Nerd World, but it's not open to everybody. And the more people come to our events, the more people perceive and see what's out there. It's just amazing. And we found that making a schedule that has only female speakers, it's just opened us up to, you know, like it just naturally, of course, it frees up space, but do you know what I mean? It's just, it opens up space for these new voices, and you get a whole different, it's like you suddenly looking at it from the left instead of the right or whatever, and everything looks ever so slightly different. It's been a fascinating experience. I can't wait to have that experience again.
So you're telling us about new voices and people that we haven't heard. So can you name a few? Because I was just looking at over the schedule. I did see a few names that I did know, but also some other names that were completely unknown. I mean, I don't know everyone who presents at all events, obviously, but I imagine some of them are really new to this and to the language world.
Yeah, and perhaps we just need to do the really quick summary, just in case people don't know anything about Women in Language.
Of course.
Women in Language is an online conference that's happening next week, that takes 4 days and has 30 speakers. Okay, now you're caught up. I'm going to hand over to Shannon to introduce some of the speakers, talk about some of the speakers, or perhaps our themes, because 30 speakers is a lot.
Yeah, I'll go over our themes, and then Lindsay can introduce some of the speakers. So we have 4 different tracks for talks as a part of Women in Language. This year, we've made a slight change to the 4 tracks we had last year. So last year, we had 2 tracks for learning languages. We had learning new languages and mastering languages. This year, we decided to combine those into 1 track. So now we have the learning languages track, which covers anything related to language learning for learners of different levels. We also have living and working with languages, which are tips for how to use languages for work, how to find work for languages. When you live with a language, like if you're in a relationship that's multilingual, if you're raising your kids to be multilingual, and different things like that. We also have travel with languages. So people are going to share their stories of what they've done with languages while traveling and how they've learned languages as a part of their travel experiences. And our new track this year is Language Discoveries, which is where speakers are going to discuss minority or unusual languages, little known communities in the language world, or quirky learning techniques that usually don't get the spotlight. So those are our 4 tracks, and I'll pass it over to Lindsay to talk about some of our speakers.
Okay, I've just pulled up the schedule because I finished the calendar today, so it's ready to go. I'll pick one at random from each day because I honestly couldn't like highlight everything. It looks so amazing. So on Thursday, let's see, we've got Destiny Yarbrough, who runs InterSign University. Her talk's called Wait, There's More Than One Sign Language, which is really interesting. So that's a cool one. And then Friday, we've got Eleanor Mutunono talking about teaching a language online in a smart and scalable way. Again, very, very cool, very interesting, completely different topics, but all encompassing language. We've got Lindy Bottis on Saturday talking about identity crisis, the ups and downs of living, working and dating in a foreign language. And I'm very intrigued because she's just moved to Singapore, which is amazing. So I'm looking forward to hearing all about that. And then on Sunday, let's pick one at random. We've got Kadi Ndoye talking about travel in Africa, navigating languages and cultures, which is going to be very interesting with some case studies from Senegal and Ethiopia, I believe.
Yeah, Kadi's a superstar. And in addition to that, we're hosting 2 panel discussions. Okay. So there's two bigger panel discussions. The first one is going to be about languages, loved ones and little ones. So anything to do with like your loved ones, your family members, your kids. And our guests are Shauna Beckwith, mother herself, who works with languages and does a lot actually in terms of studying. I'm so impressed with her German. It's unbelievable. We have Marianne de Bosque, And
Nice.
yeah, and she's bilingual avenue,
Bilingual
and
Avenue.
just
Yes.
knows a thing or two or 7 million about bilingual kids.
Yep,
And
yep.
our final panelist is Penny Wilson, who is also speaking as well about organizing a language trip, and she goes by Lingo Mama, and I think she will talk as well about traveling with kids. So she's awesome. And our second panel is about creativity in language learning, and features head of the Loved Ones and Little Ones panel is Shannon. Head of the creativity panel is Lindsay. And the guests in the creativity panel are going to be Ophelia Wirth, who is a young polyglot YouTuber, just all around interesting.
Yeah, she was in Reykjavik.
She was, yeah. And she was in, what's it called, Juliana last year.
Ah, okay.
Maria Ortega Garcia, who last year presented about using poetry to learn languages and poems. And this year is giving a talk as well. She came back and she's speaking about...
I have it here. Creative writing for rhythm and intonation in the target language. There you go.
Yeah, and that just... Oh, the description of that is just like, what? It's improving your accent through creative writing, whether that's a thing and how it works. So she is an extremely fascinating guest to have. And who's our third guest? Oh, Katie Harris, right? Katie from Joy of Languages is back in the house as well. So we've got some familiar faces, but like Nicolas said, it's not all familiar faces, and that's kind of the point.
Exactly.
Also, I think it's worth mentioning this year we've added something new, and Kerstin's going to be hosting that. We are doing lightning talks this year. We didn't do them last year, so...
I saw that. So what happens there? How do you get...
Yeah, digital lightning talks. It's a it's an adventure for you and me.
Yeah. You gotta time it right, yeah.
Lightning talks are the opportunity for ticket holders to apply to get a very short speaking slot. Lightning talks are extremely short presentations, so think 5 minutes, and people can talk about any relevant topic. Or when I wrote the rules, I think I wrote viable topic.
Yeah.
But, so we've got a few kind of general rules, but really this is because we want to hear from our audience members, and they're on Sunday. So that even gives you an opportunity to share your own reflections on what you have just seen during the conference, and perhaps the notes you took, etc. So there's a lot of opportunity there. And those lightning talks are open, and the way we're organizing it is people can apply by Wednesday, and then we'll let them know, and we're going to have a hangout with a sort of boss host, and like Tetsu can mute us and generously doesn't. I'm going to host that one, and I might not be quite as generous if people go on too long, but we'll give it a go. Because lightning talks are awesome.
I've seen lightning talks at Polyglot Gathering. I think they've had it for quite a while, and it's interesting because then you discover people. You discovered people who might be sometimes obviously they're not speakers at the event, but they're sometimes quiet, or you don't get the chance to interact with them, and then you see what interests them, and it's actually really interesting.
Absolutely, and we might just discover our next speakers for next year.
Exactly.
Not that Lindsay hasn't added 700 people to the list for next year already. Like, having women doesn't seem to mean that we've got any less choice.
Well, I was gonna say, so basically, you guys come up with a list and you go out and reach out to people, or do you have like some form of a proposal, call to proposal?
So far, that's been the process. So we contact it and we solicit for people to we ask people, do you have time? So we keep our eye open all year long.
Well, I guess so.
And yes, and then I handle the outreach, and just our speakers are very generous that way, and it's kind of cool to do it that way. It's kind of interesting because, for example, we've got a few people on the schedule this year, like Dr. Eve Okura-Koller, and also, I'm just going to say all the doctors, Dr. Monica Reardon, who are just women in language as a concept, you know, is maybe known in polyglot circles, but it's not on everybody's radar. It's like not on the radar of academics or school teachers necessarily. And by us reaching out to our speakers, the opportunity that we have there is to, in a sense, curate a schedule that brings together people from different worlds, and, you know, people who, you know, whereas otherwise we would, I don't doubt that we'd have an amazing conference with people from our communities, but we can add something perhaps by reaching out, because I know some of these people wouldn't have put themselves forward for women in language because they wouldn't have known about it in the first place. Plus there's the whole thing about women and not putting themselves forward, that is a discussion that is often had.
Yeah, well, definitely. We're all very glad that you have an event that really highlights the other gender.
Plenty of genders these days.
Yes.
Yeah, we highlight them for you, so hopefully
there you go.
Once they've been with us, they can come to you as
well,
well.
that'd be great. That'd
But,
be great. You know,
but I think you. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say, you know, as you were mentioning how the event's gonna be amazing, I do want to take a minute to say hello to our viewers. One of whom says WIL is amazing. So we have Elizabeth Bruckner. Says, yay, WIL is amazing. This language event changed the way I learn languages. So how about that? Isn't that why we do these events?
Too kind.
Exactly.
Right?
That's so
Yeah.
cool.
This is exactly what we thrive for.
Elizabeth is actually one of our speakers this year as well.
Oh.
She's talking about the fine art of
Right.
language exchange. Yes. I
Right.
didn't pick her at random because she was at the bottom of the schedule, but I just I could have picked anyone.
What a great community we have, though.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
definitely there are various types of communities out there. You know, all sorts. Where you know, arts and science. You know, you go to a scientific community. Sometimes, you know, a conference for you know, when I was studying. I mean, some of these places was a war zone, and compared to that, you know, language community is really a place where people gel and bond and support. It's not, you know, that's not how you do it, or my data says this. No.
No,
So-
we're massively nice, aren't we?
Absolutely. So it's-
Language exchanges is a topic, I think, where it really is a very interesting, something we noticed last year in the chat room, and that sort of stands out to me, that I really remember, is that language exchanges and the things that happen to females in particular in that space were discussed in a way that I have never seen before, because we just happened to, and this really wasn't intentional, it wasn't like go, but we just suddenly all realized, oh, hang on, we've all had about 17 marriage proposals and probably 25 dick pricks. But you know what I mean?
I think the polite word is aubergine.
No.
I think that's the polite way to describe
Yeah, sorry, we're not for children anymore. But you know what I mean? And this is something that happens when you start this chat and you start, you know, like, and you're out there and you want to learn a language and you want to just say, like, it's really quite liberating to be in a space where everybody can go, yeah, do you know what? That's happened to me too, and that sucks. Not, oh my god, the whole world sucks, but it's felt really good to have a moment where we can just go, oh yeah, this is a thing, and this is a very gendered experience, not that we chose to have really, but that's happening. So it made for an interesting, this angle is really valuable, and we couldn't have this event with this angle if it wasn't for events like LangFest and the various polyglot conferences.
And it's only getting better. I really think we're still at the tip of the iceberg. So.
And I think you said something that was really interesting, Kerstin. 5 minutes ago, you said, you know, that you got some new speakers just because you were combining, you know, two different things, two different communities together. You know, it's women in languages. It can be, you know, languages and something else. Can be women and something else. You know, and then you'll always you're widening. Or you could think that you're making the pool smaller because you have to be in both categories. But I think something that we found at LangFest and doing events, and I'm also involved in Esperanto, stuff like that. Usually you widen because you'll pull in people that you know, but those people will like you said, maybe you meet some women that didn't know they had this connection to languages, and then because you're an event that has this connection to being a woman in some field, then you're pulling in that new person, and bang, you've grown the community essentially, in a way that that you might not have done in an event that was just languages, or just whatever field you can think of.
And I remember Shannon last year suggested a speaker. Our first speaker, I don't know if you remember, Shannon, our first speaker was Sarah Schmidt, and her talk was riveting, fascinating, and very academic informed. She's a researcher, and Shannon, if Shannon hadn't heard about her, I wouldn't have heard about her even. And it was such a useful conversation to have. And the same with like Lindsay going around the world, meeting people and doing language stories. Just we all three live in different universes to each other, and that bringing that together creates already something amazing. But then we have to be aware, and we have to look further, because for example, we're still just, I said this last year, we're still just 3 white ladies who mostly speak English. So you also have to be we try to be diverse, and we definitely haven't, like, I don't know, got won the lottery and got the golden check mark of diversity. That's not what it's about. Diversity is just evermore, and we can only try,
Do you have some talks in languages other than English?
I'll pass that one to Shannon, just because Shannon's very quiet and Lindsay's very quiet. I feel like I've talked a lot. Yeah, Shannon, take that one.
So we've thought about this and we've discussed it, but we've opted not to do that yet. We're still a fairly new event, and we want to make sure that these talks are accessible to as many people as possible. So for the moment, we are doing talks in English exclusively, but it's definitely something that we're considering for future events or future kind of spin-off events, but it's not something that we're currently doing.
Okay. Yeah, I think this is always a balance to be had between larger languages and smaller languages. But something that that we found, at least I don't have the exact numbers, but just we're increasing the proportion of non-English talks, and striving to at LangFest, and obviously especially French, but not only. We could have Spanish and a few other large languages potentially, but mostly French. There's a lot of people in the community who are English speaking. Us being in North America, obviously we also have a lot of American and English-speaking Canadian visitors, participants. But what we found is that actually the French talks were not, at least last year, less attended, or significantly less attended than the English talks, because you could say that yes, some people will not attend a talk because it's in a language that they don't understand, but you will also draw some people who will say, I'll go to that one because it's a challenge for me. When I was at the gathering, for instance, I don't speak very good German, speak intermediate German, but I went to a couple of German talks just for the fun of it. I was like, okay, interesting topic, and it's in German. Let me go and see if I understand it. And I was happy to find out that I could actually get most of it. So I think it plays both ways. I think you'll maybe exclude some people in a sense, but attract some other participants as well. So I think the two in the end seem to balance to even out.
All right, guys, we're gonna have to start thinking about wrapping up the talk.
Bone erased. Sorry.
but we don't want to neglect our viewers, and we do have one question. So let's see if you guys can address this question very, very quickly, because it's like a whole can of you know what. But
sure.
but I'm gonna shoot it to you right away. Okay, do you find, this is from Leo Bourdon? We all know Leo Bourdon. Do you find there's something different with genders and how we learn languages? Is there something that men or women have that's different that makes them more or less successful? I mean, we know that at these various conferences, it's a more male dominated I think events, and which is why having one like yours is definitely good. But is there something physiological, I don't know, or psychological that makes us different types of language learners?
Well, there's a lot, we live in we live in a world where the experience of
Okay, thank you
a
very much.
female
No.
person is very different to the experience of a male person. That's just like a fact, right? So you can't, you know, like you can't say the experience is entirely the same because just life experience is different. However, we had a panel on this last year. So first of all,
Wow.
I must say we had a 2-hour panel on this, and it felt like we skimmed the surface, but it was a fascinating conversation.
I knew this could be a huge topic.
Yeah. So Leo, if you wanna watch last year, if you don't have a ticket for last year, message me, and you can buy access to last year's recordings from me.
Wow.
I'll make you a special offer
Well,
to
there you
watch
go.
if you're interested. And having said that, though, because last year's was amazing, but two things that just emerged. I mean, I earlier mentioned already that, for example, the experience going out and looking for a language exchange, just even that little thing is a little bit different. And the other thing that I remember emerging last year was the perception of the male intelligence and the male genius. So we had a bit of a conversation about that, and the fact that when in society we think of a genius, and in history if you think of a genius scientist, you don't tend to think of a woman. So women don't have as many role models and images around them that would make you think like brilliance, you know. And also we're seen as nurturers, and we're seen as, you know, so there's this other thing about language learning is a hobby for many of us. Learning as an adult is a hobby, and as a woman, you don't tend to devote necessarily as much time to a nerdery and hobby. So being a nerd is also more of a male-dominated field. And I see Shannon nodding. Shannon's a musician, so she knows it from that field as well. And that was
Shannon,
certainly.
I'm gonna have to push you a little. Shannon.
Yeah.
Kerstin, we are down to the seconds now. So.
It's okay. Well, Leo, too big a topic. Message me.
Right. And he says danke, Kerstin.
Womeninlanguage.com.
Womeninlanguage.com. And when is it again?
7th to the 10th. So starts next Thursday. Runs till Monday.
Womeninlanguage.com. Everybody, look that up and get your ticket. All right.